Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Smugglers MMA, where I'll be going over the resume of Stipe Miocic, who is widely regarded as the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. That being said, let's get straight into the video with the resume tier list criteria, with C tier being I don't really care, B tier being contender slash decent enough, B plus tier being almost elite fighters, A tier being elite fighters or champs that maybe weren't as skilled, A plus tier being champions of the best that never were, like Dustin, Gus, and Chad Mendez, and S tier obviously being the best of the best. Now, Stipe's first notable matchup would be against JDS, where over a hard fought 5 straight rounds, JDS would ultimately win a decision against Stipe. Now, I don't know about you guys, but JDS is in my top 5 greatest heavyweights of all time. His wins over Frank Mir, Cain Velasquez, Moko Krokop, Fabricio Verdum, and his only losses in the UFC to this point were to Cain Velasquez twice, so I will put him as an S tier loss for Stipe. Now, if his next fight, Stipe would face Andrei Arlovski, where, long story short, he would knock him out in the first round pretty brutally. Andrei Arlovski is a very weird case because in his prime, he's probably like an A tier fighter, multiple title defenses at heavyweight. But at this time in his career, he was like a very win 4, lose 4 type of fighter. He was coming off a few decent wins against Bigfoot Silva and Frank Mir, so I'll put him in the B tier. Now, Stipe's next fight would be against Fabricio Verdum, where again, long story short, he would knock him out in the first round to become the heavyweight champ. Now, Fabricio Verdum was coming off a great win against Cain Velasquez, has a win over Fedor, Bigfoot Silva, Alistair Overeem. He was a little bit older, he was 38 at this time, and he was on a slide right after, so I will still put him in the A tier. That being said, Stipe's first title defense would be against Alistair Overeem, where he almost would get knocked out in the first round, but Alistair Overeem would jump a guillotine for who knows what reason, and obviously didn't get it. And Stipe would come back and knock him down in the first round, and ground and pound him to a first round finish. Now, Alistair Overeem is, in my opinion, one of the greatest heavyweights to never win the undisputed belt. Has wins over Fabricio Verdum twice, JDS, Andrei Arlovski, Frank Mir, Brock Lesnar. I think he's an easy A plus tier fighter. Now, Stipe's next title defense would be against JDS, where, again, long story short, he would knock him out in the first round. Now, JDS at this point, his only losses were to Alistair Overeem and Cain Velasquez now, and he didn't show any point of declining, and he did go on a 3-fight win streak right after, picking up names like Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa, which isn't the greatest win, but he was still at an elite level. I still will put him in the S tier. That being said, Stipe's next title defense would be against Francis Ngannou, where he would dominate Francis Ngannou over 5 rounds and end up winning a 50-44 decision. Now, normally Francis Ngannou on your resume is an easy S tier, but at this point in Francis' career, he didn't have the takedown defense. He wasn't patient. His cardio was very lacking, but he still had a great win over Alistair Overeem. So I will put him in the A plus tier. Now, Stipe's next title fight would be against DC, where in a clinch, DC would knock him out with a short, kind of elbow slash hook that would knock out Stipe in the first round. Now, DC is obviously one of the greatest to ever do it in my top 10. I have him at number 8 or 7. So this is an easy S tier loss for Stipe. Now, Stipe's next fight would be the rematch against Daniel Cormier, where he would make a crucial adjustment by going to the body whenever they were grabbing hands and clinching, and that would ultimately hurt DC in the 4th round, and he would get a TKO finish to reclaim the heavyweight belt. Now, again, DC still in his prime at this point. Easy S tier for Stipe. Now, Stipe's next title fight would be against DC for the 3rd time, where he would eye poke the absolute piss out of him. And was it the 2nd round? Forgive me if I don't know the exact round, but from that point on, he would dominate DC to pick up a decision victory. Now, DC at this point, I think he should have retired after the 2nd fight with Stipe, but it's still DC. I'm going to put him in the A plus tier. Now, Stipe's next title defense would be against Francis Ngannou for the 2nd time, where Francis would knock him down in the 2nd round and murder him pretty badly. Now, this was obviously peak Francis. A lot more patient, had takedown defense. His cardio was a little bit better. He's coming off the win of Rosenstrike, JDS, and Cain Velasquez and Curtis Blades. This is an obvious S tier loss for Stipe. Now, he should have retired there, but he would come out of retirement to face John Jones, where he was actually tagging him up. And we'll get to the third round, but we'll get spinning heel kicked and get finished. And then Stipe would finally retire. The overall for Stipe's resume tier list is B tier Andrei Arlovsky, B plus tier Nobody, A tier Fabricio Verdum, A plus tier Francis Ngannou the first time, DC the third time, and Alistair Overeem. And his 2 S tier wins are DC the second time and JDS the second time. His losses are obviously JDS the first time, DC the first time, Francis Ngannou the second time, and John Jones. That being said, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know who I should do next for a resume. With that being said, goodbye.